and it is the game between Fabi, the winner of the tournament, and the five-time former world champion. I think he's actually won 9 world championship titles. That is none other than Viswanathan Anand, Vishy. And it's just like two ships that went in different directions after this game. Fabi was dead, busted. It was like, oh man, it was pretty grim. And immediately after the game, he was interviewed, and Fabi said, a miracle took place. A miracle happened.
Yeah.
And that's really what happened. And that miracle propelled Fabi up the tournament leaderboard so that he was in a tie for first. And Fabi literally scored 6.5 out of 7. His last 7 games, he's just on a roll. I mean, he had the wind to his sails thanks to Vichy. Had Vichy won this game, he would have pushed Fabi to the middle of the table, brought himself up, and
It
we
changed
might.
Fishy's tournament dramatically as
Yeah,
well. I
and
mean, oh man.
I believe Magnus is the most decorated winner of Tata Steel. I think,
Yeah.
apologies if I'm wrong, I think he's won it 6 times, but I think Vichy's won it 5 times. Okay. Certainly, like one of the big winners is Viswanathan Anand, and this game just had a roller coaster ride to it, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to be lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. We still got a lot of people here, guys. So we're just getting into the last game here that Yasser is presenting. We're still doing the masterclass, a bit more chill, a few more stories this time around. And,
Right.
reminder, we got all the other Yasser masterclasses on our YouTube channel. They have been uploaded. There's a little playlist. And I think !masterclass will direct you right there.
Cool.
We got the live thing right in front of us right now. So stay with us.
Exactly.
Happy to have you
Ask
here.
and ask questions because Aman is going to be monitoring the chat. So any questions you might have, please do it. And knight f3. So d5. These days, d5 has really become the go-to defense. The Rogozin, the Semi-Slavs, the Slavs, the Queen's Gambit accepted, the Tarrasch, semi-Tarrasch has all really become, the standard. If you go back to the 1970s and 1980s, everybody, and I mean everybody, played the Queen's Indian, like to a person. You know, uh, Anatoly Karpov.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, sir. I mean, you're trying to be all serious and it's going well, but in the meantime, the chat is in a riot. We got gifted subs from Tommy, Fook, and Shelby, 10 gifted
Tommy,
subs from Tommy, and then all of a sudden, Chess Bay coming in with 20 gifted subs on top of that. So
wow.
I know I appreciate you're trying to go all serious on us, yeah, sir. You're like, listen, let's
Well,
go through this game a little quicker, but I can't miss these big donations and gifted subs. Thanks so much to Tommy and ChessBay94 for gifting the
well,
subs. And yeah,
a,
wow,
a, a
really
really
appreciate it,
very,
guys.
very special shout out to Jess Bay. Um, she has been so supportive of our channel. It's just and I say our, and it's not mine. I mean, I was the late bloomer here. I came in 2, 3 years ago, and I remember Chess Bay from the very first time I visited Montreal way back in the day. You guys have
Yep.
already been to Calgary and St. Louis and
Yeah, that
other
was
stops
many
in
cities
between.
ago.
So nothing like a great support from Chess Bay. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's right, yeah, sir. Been around for a while,
Yeah, baby.
supporting a lot in those Montreal days when I was going for the GM title. So a
I
big reason
remember
that
the
we were able
beard.
to travel to all those tournaments and get that title. So
Right.
definitely a big
I,
shout out to Chess Bay.
I still have this horrifying image. I don't know if
Oh
I'll ever
no.
be able to get it out of my mind, but you 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 had basically said, grandmaster title or bust. I got the beard, and then when you got your GM title, everybody came to help you snip it off. And I got this image of Fabiano in Montreal somehow twisting your beard, so he could get a real good, good clump.
That is I think ingrained in history. Don't worry, we've got that all over the World Wide Web. So yeah,
There ought to be a poster of that somehow, because I got that shearing, shearing of the beard in my mind.
yeah. Fabiano did shave my Grandmaster beard, and there's nothing anyone can say about that. That's just a fact.
There you go. Okay, back in the day, the Queen's Indian with B7 to B6 was all the rage. That's all everybody played. Today, it's been completely and utterly superseded by this move D7, D5, and the players quickly go into a Rogozin. Again, there has been tons of games with C7, C6. This is, of course, the Botvinnik pawn sacrifice, and you better know your stuff if you're going to enter these waters, because they're really, really, really dangerous. And there's just, bishop e7, going and transposing into a normal Queen's Gambit decline. But the Rogozin, bishop b4, has a very, very good reputation at the highest level. If you go back to the World Championship match between Garry Kasparov and Nigel Short, that was when it really took off and became very popular. Anyway, a big part of Vichy's defensive arsenal. And the players quickly get themselves into a well-established variation of the Rogozin. White's last move, Queen b3, slightly misplaces the queen, in my view. For me personally, I think that bishop d3, the old move, is still the best move, but queen b3, okay, it takes the game off into different chartered waters. Bishop g5. Okay, the bishop on f4, it isn't doing anything great. C7 is very adequately covered.
Right.
A3, the move A3. First of all, you've got to ask yourself, how do I want to recapture on C3? If I recapture with the pawn, then the knight will end up on a very nice square in the middle of the board on C4. If I recapture with the queen, I'm really inviting black to play knight to E4. In these variations, the B3 square, strangely enough, it becomes a very vulnerable square. Oftentimes, black has the time to play A5, A4, and sorry, that knight is supposed to get to A5. It won't get there.
There it goes.
To A5 and then to B3 as soon as you put a pawn on A4. Okay, but bishop G5 poses another problem for black, a different problem. The problem black now is facing is that if you can eliminate the support of the D pawn, maybe black will lose the D5 pawn.
Right.
And away they go. There goes the pawn. But again, one of the things that I really want to emphasize is that thanks to the computer is the advance of opening theory is happening, I think, at some kind of escalating rate, right? He's accelerating. You see the players, and Vichy has really been one of those players at the forefront, have taken their computers and just fixated them on specific positions, and their analysis, their opening preparation has gone deeper than ever before. And for me, They talk about Vladimir Kramnik as being a great opening specialist, and he is. He's a wonderful opening specialist, but I just don't see how you can think any lesser of Vichy as an opening
Right.
specialist. And if you think about their world championship match in Bonn in 2008, Vichy won that match with the black pieces. He outprepared Vladimir Kramnik. So yeah, and here he is. He's gambiting a pawn, but he knows that once he gets his knight uh, embedded on this b3 square with White's king still stuck in the center, he'll have great compensation. So does Fabi, and Fabi says, "You want to trade queens?" No, thank you.
Yeah, just
Queen,
win a pawn and then see if the guy is interested in maybe getting those ladies off the board.
exactly, exactly. Queen c6 attacking the c3 pawn, which comes with a very, very nasty threat. c4. The funny part is that all of these moves just came with this understanding that this is preparation. Like both players just, like, yeah, I know this, I know this. Let's get to the important part. I was like amazed, right? I'm just like, wow, what is it? So this is a prepared preparation by both players, and the question is, when will their preparation stop, and they will have to play for
A question I
themselves?
ask all the time.
Yeah.
When the heck is
So
that going to
it
end?
was actually here. No, I believe I beg your pardon. It was here that I think that both players had kind of reached their limit, right? That they had come prepared to play this position. If you put this position in your chess engine, it will say equals. Yay. Some positions are more equal than others. I would just say that for me, practically, as a human player, I find it easier to play the white pieces. Why? Well, look at the position. There's a queen on h6. I can see knight g5 in the position. I can see h4, h5. I really like these pawns on e3 and d4. They give white this very, very comfortable edge in the center. This knight on b3 is anchored, but in a sense, it's really not going anywhere, right? It's kind of
Yep.
good, but a little bit offside. To my way of thinking, I get to play knight to e5 and bishop to c4. And then I start to think, okay, I get to play h4, h5, knight e5, bishop c4. If black doesn't play b5, b4 and win on the queen side, I can see an easy path to victory on the king side. Hence, equals. What? I really hate that. I'm in St. Louis and I'm doing commentary, and I go, wow, this position looks great for one side or another. And then Maurice, Ashley, or Alejandro Ramirez will inform me, yeah, you're right. The engine agrees with you, Yasser. 000.
Yeah, great.
What? I think they do it to mock me. But really, I do believe that the engine says equal, but I do believe it's easier to play white. How about you, Aman? Were you to have this position in a game, could you see yourself having a preference for
Um,
me?
always, I think I'm always going to be partial to white.
Mm.
Um, so I think it just fits my style a bit better. I'm not too materialistic, honestly, when it comes to chess. So I'm always looking for more the sort of natural aesthetics of the position, as well as how easy it looks to play. It
Right.
definitely looks easier to play white. That's not
Right.
always a cop out because okay, it's sometimes it's going to be easier to play, but hey, if you find those tough moves, you get rewarded with
Right.
the black pieces. That's sort of how it works. But I would probably say white, just because I don't see the knight on b3 getting into the game pretty much anyway soon. And I have some ways of thinking that as long as I keep the queens on the board,
Hmm.
I have pretty good chances on the king side, and it's just so solid. That's
Right.
what gets me. If the pawns were a little more all over the place, or if there were more open files for black's rooks, I'd be a little more concerned. But I like how it looks to me very simple that the queen side is not very mobile for black, king side is very mobile for white, and it doesn't feel to me like those rooks are really going to be too dangerous without open lines. So I just like how it looks pretty solid and easy to play for white. But I guess it also depends on whether you're entering this position with knowledge, right? Are you entering
Yeah,
it
exactly.
knowing the evaluation? Are you entering it knowing some
Right.
ideas, or do you just throw two players in here randomly? Because I think if I just sort of like landed here with someone else who didn't know what was going on, I would always take white. But
Mm.
when sometimes if it's preparation, then I might be a little more scared because I think that I like white, but I know that my logic is flawed ultimately somewhere. That like it's not that good for white based on the evaluation
Right.
being
And,
0.
and like you say, the qualifier is, the prep, right? And just how deep has been the prep. So we
Yeah.
get the move knight e5, and that looks like a prelude to f2, f4, bishop c4, and just getting the king side attack going. It may be glacially slow, but once it lands, it's going to be picking up speed. Now, in the meantime, there was also a threat of knight to d7, forking the rook and the queen. So Vichy dodges that particular fork, covers the c4 square, and in fact, in many lines, black is anticipating sacrificing an exchange on c4 in order to quickly follow up with b6 to b5. Let me just do that again. Come on, you can do it. Yes, sir,
Bishop
you can do it.
c4 or what?
I want to go, yeah, I wanted to go b6 to b5 to b4. The one good thing about the knight on b3 is it does attack the a1 square.
Right.
So if that a4 pawn should ever be released, you know, it's ideal, right? Yeah, this is exactly the type of thing that black is aspiring for.
Right.
Nicely done. Thank you very much.
Just had to put a picture to all those pretty words.
Sometimes you just got to take over, you just got to present. Okay, so let me go backwards. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, so rook, oops, excuse me, rook to c8 on the board, f4. Okay, I mean, Fabi is ready uh, to f5, and this rook will be, magically placed along the f file, which is why Vishy really wants to get rid of the rook. And he does, and bishop to c4, rook a7. So far, you can see that the progression has been very natural, one, I would say, for both players. Now, this move, White is anticipating a kind of a recalibration of his pieces, if you will. He wants to put his queen back either to g5 or h4 so that he can land his knight on the f6 square. And here we get an idea uh, of what um, Fabi wants to do. One of the really big um, questions in chess that I think all the players in the chess world have always asked themselves is, when do I trade queens? When should I trade queens? And I think the answer is a lot more simple than people give credit for. I think the answer is simply, whose king is more vulnerable?
Right.
It just simply goes like that. In this position, I find that black's king is more vulnerable to attack, and so it's in white's interest to keep queens on the board, even though you're potentially hanging your face on the queen side, right?
Right.
You lose the eight pawn, you can easily imagine that the game is going to be over in short order. But on the other hand, now you're looking at the position, you can see that the queen could go to e8 with a check, the pawn on b6 could also be captured. And this knight is just ready to menace either knight to h6 check or knight to f6. Okay. So for me, the jury was still out, and I'm sure the computer still suggests 000,
Yeah, exactly.
which is probably fair, actually. Uh, Now, after this move f5, well, hello, watch out. f6 would set up really nice checkmating nets. Black plays f6. And at first blush, it really looks like white is making some really nice inroads. Queen g8 mate on tap, queen f8, and then you just again, you still need to do something because right now black's got all of his bases covered.
Right.
He's going to be ready to reset his knight and get his queen side in motion. Takes e5. Sometimes you just got to bring in more attackers, right? The pawn on e3 wasn't participating. Queen
And
c8.
it's really impressive to me that black is like able to maintain a half decent position with this knight on c1, which is like just a non-participant
Exactly.
the entire time, and the rook on a7 has sort of been. I mean, it's just black moving his queen around for the last 5 to 10 moves,
Yeah,
but yet he seems to in some ways be making progress, which is crazy.
exactly. Now, I think that this is a very, very hard human move to see. But it is a line of the chess engines, not my line. And I want to emphasize that because during the game,
I'm
for
sure
me,
we'd be able to tell.
yeah, I really did not anticipate this move at all. But there was this move b5. And the whole idea is that white has set up nicely this battery, right, with his
Yeah.
queen bishop. So all you want to do is interfere with that battery for a half a ply. So you can go queen takes a3.
Take it and go right back.
Exactly. I mean, like at bishop c4, you go right back with the queen.
That's a good trade. Yep.
Exactly. And again, this is a chess engine generated
Oh yeah.
game, but you can just see that
That rook
from
on a7 too, covering the seventh rank is so important.
exactly, exactly. Oops, no,
h3, I
again,
guess we have to do. Guard the
yeah,
knight and stop mate, but I guess this guy's just rolling.
yeah, exactly. So this is an engine generated line. The engine doesn't see a checkmate for white, but it sees a new queen for black. So that would have been quite the the line. I'm sure had Vichy played the move b5 and gone into that whole variation, he would have been wanded with
Yeah,
check
yeah, exactly.
computer
Just
chips. Like, wow,
come this way for a random drug test.
exactly. Would you please? Okay, but he made the far more human move, Queen c8, which introduces obviously an attack on the knight, but also this idea of being able to bring the rook into play, either via c7 or even via d7. Oop, whoa, what happened there? I hit the wrong button.
Oh yeah, probably just clicked to the end of the game by accident.
Yeah,
Yep.
I apologize. Okay, so here we go. H3, protecting the knight. Rook d7, queen e6, attacking f6 pawn,
It's
queen
okay,
d.
guys. We'll edit that out in the YouTube video, you know.
Exactly. And now, again, this very, very pregnant moment here. White seems to be having his pieces, in coordination mode, but, wait a minute, black is still in there throwing some patties of his own, right? If you miss the blow, it could easily be that Vichy takes over. E5.
I mean, White's been on the attack the entire game, right? So it's
Exactly.
and this is such a funny. I mean, you let the knight go to f6. It looks like a
Right.
complete disaster from a defensive standpoint. How could you possibly allow knight f6?
Right.
And well, I assume he should still do it, but I imagine black's going to play rook e7, and
Exactly.
and it's like, how is there no like checkmate or win
Right.
here?
Exactly. I mean, and there's a counter attack, and the whole variation at the end comes down to this position, and a likely draw would have
Right.
been the result. And we all expected knight f6 because you've played for e4 e5. You actually retreated the knight from the e5 square. White did. He went knight on e5 to g4 with the idea of repositioning the knight to f6. So we all anticipated knight f6, and once again, this line looked very, very forcing indeed. And this position. But we were all shocked by queen f6, and as Fabi himself said, it was just a calculation error that he made. This was a terrible move, forcing the trade of queen. And after this move, for some reason, king h7 was just not on Fabi's radar. He basically was thinking that this pawn was going home. So the king had to go back. He was thinking that he was going to go knight e5 and win the game thanks to the fork against the rook on d7. And so when king h7 landed on the
shower.
Total. Like, think. As suddenly this pride and joy, this great pawn on f7 is fully neutralized. The king on g7 is simply perfect. And white has to face the music on the queen side as well. So this is unfortunately for Fabi now a losing ending. Knight g5, trying his best to maintain his pawn on
he wants knight h7.
Exactly. And now here, Vichy made a very, very perplexing decision. Quick, Aman, you've got 10 seconds on your clock. You're black. What you're facing knight e6 check and other things. What do you play?
Well, I play knight takes d4, that's for sure.
I play knight takes d4. You're absolutely right. You win the prize. And after knight takes d4, which is, again, for me, the most natural move in the position, and after knight h7, the move you mentioned, you just drop back rook. You give back the exchange, but look what you've got left. How sweet it is. The king is perfectly ready to come up the board, and you can advance on the queen side as well. This, I have no doubt, with the extra healthy pawn, Vichy wins.
And easily, too. This is just such a nice, risk-free position. It's usually exactly how you convert these types of positions.
Precisely. So when he played the move knight to d2, we were all like, whoa, taken aback, because the other line just kind of plays itself. You don't really. And this line, however, starts to be a little bit confusing,
Yep.
like because you're an exchange up, but now
Nobody
suddenly,
knows what's going on.
right? Hold on, where did that move, Bishop D7, come into play? Because you can't take the bishop. The bishop is threatening to go to the E8 square, which cuts off the rook.
Yep.
And then the knight can reload either to H7 or E6. And trust me, you can easily get confused, right? As to like what's going on.
Yep.
So suddenly Vishy said, okay, let me just, get rid of the knights and, get this position. Now, the strange thing is that Vishy was actually aiming for this position because in his mind, what he was thinking was, this is as easy as ABC.
Yeah.
I pushed my pawn to B4. That guy has to take the pawn on B4. Then I go A3 and I queen.
Yep.
If he goes bishop takes A4, which is required, sorry.
Rook A8.
No, I'll take this pawn on F7, right? Mm-hmm. King takes F7. Bishop B3 check, king here, king takes, and I got an easy draw as black. I mean, I can't lose it, right? But in Vishy's mind, he thought that he would play this and he would win back the pawn on A3, right?
Yep.
And then his rook and pawn would overwhelm the bishop. So literally, just at this moment, Vishy thought he's winning. It's not that easy. So first of all, from a material point of view, white has 2 pawns for the exchange.
Yep.
Secondly, I got bad news. This pawn on F7 is still alive, and that's one move away from queening, right? This bishop is nearly perfectly placed, dealing with not only anchoring the F7 pawn, but also covering the B pawn. And finally, don't think for a moment that white isn't considering
a triplet.
Getting a third pass pawn. Here, Vishy again. I think he's carrying the knowledge that he was winning before, so that he has to still, keep winning, right? And here he just kind of, he gets carried along. This is a really, really bad move. He should have played rook to A6. Why? Well, in the first place, this rook is now attacking the bishop.
With check.
And and just yes, there we go. See my arrow? That's a good arrow. That's probably the best arrow of the evening.
I drew it, Yasser.
Oh, that explains it. Nicely done, young buck. Wow, I thought I was improving. And at the same time, the rook is trying to get behind the passer, so that.
I almost didn't want to tell you, Yasser. You were really happy about that arrow.
You had me on a roll. This would have ended up drawing the game as well. But again, Vishy was under the misapprehension that with this move, rook A1,
he wanted to stop the D pawn from behind and just roll home and cut the king off, essentially.
Exactly. Except he had underestimated that, in fact, this pawn is really, really strong. So,
Well, he had
so
missed on the last move that probably the d6 was like a real threat. D6 followed by f8.
exactly. Doubtlessly, Vichy had anticipated that he would be winning here because he would just win the pawn, and the d6 pawn had to be sacrificed so that b3 could be stopped. But oops, the old distraction routine gives Fabi the win. So now we got to this position, and suddenly it becomes obvious. Oh my goodness. You got these two bridesmaids that you can't deal with. The bishop can be captured by either the king or the rook, but if you capture it with the rook, you're threatening the queen.
A funny position.
Isn't that fun? Isn't that cool? And you win. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, at this moment, red-faced, Vichy realized, oh my goodness, I've overplayed my hand and tried to save the game with rook f2, but after king takes, again, this bishop is just like invulnerable, right? I mean, it has this magical, mystical role. It can't be captured. It's great. I mean, the rules of chess are violated. And now with this line, Vichy wants to capture the bishop, but it's too late. King c7, and again, there's nothing that black can do, and a miracle had occurred. Not like the miracle of Montreal, but a miracle for Fabi. He went on, just like I said, score 6.5 out of 7. He cruised, I believe, to 10 out of 13. He was 2 points, not 1, 2 points clear of the field, 2 points ahead of Magnus Carlsen. And what a way of getting tuned up for the candidates, as Fabiano showed, like, hey, I want to be the challenger again.
Yeah, and that's what Vichy himself did with Magnus, right? He like went right back into the gauntlet and came out on top again, which was like so impressive at the time. So
exactly.
Yeah, Fabi looking to do that, and yeah, this was a really I remember not watching the entire game, but I remember playing through this one afterwards. I mean, what a crazy turnaround. I think it's games like this where you get reminded, like, wait a minute, these guys actually blunder sometimes. It's like both of them experienced, their mutual points of blindness, where Fabi didn't play knight f6, but right, queen f6, and all of a sudden we got into this game, and then Vichy didn't execute what should have been a win in the best way possible. And it's like it's just nice to see the human qualities when it's so relatable. You're like, oh, I used to be winning the game. You feel obliged to still play for a win, and then you end up losing, and it's pretty much everybody's nightmare. It happens to me all the time, and when you see it happen to somebody like on top of the chess world like that, just some sort of small reaffirmation. It's like, wait a minute, it happens to them too, and it's crazy to see.
Well, the nice part in your case is you get the winning positions first before you spoil them, right?
Yeah, because my openings are so good, Yasser. That's the thing. That's where I excel.